we're getting images of Mohammed bin Salman, from Saudi Arabia. He's just arrived, the Crown Prince, MBS, born the 31st of August 1985. King Salman in June 2017 appointed his son Mohammed bin Salman as heir. He's a polarizing figure internationally, seen by some as being a villain in the Khashoggi episode, but also seen by people inside his country as a reformer. Amongst the young, I had many batchmates from Saudi Arabia. They see him as a reformer, as an evangelist. He's being able to deal with the clergy and yet introduce a new Saudi Arabia which has space for women, more freedoms, more liberty than in the past. He has been granted the status of a state visit on the 11th of September, the day after the G20 gets over. Mohammed bin Salman will have a state visit. He's had a state visit in 2019. Before this, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been, Ashwini Vaishnav there to receive him, the Indian Minister for Telecom. Also interestingly, most of the other dignitaries have been received by a Minister of State, signifying that this is one step higher. Even for Joe Biden, the American president, you had General V.K. Singh, who's Minister of State in the government, receive Joe Biden. Here you've got Ashwini Vaishnav, one of the most important ministers in the Modi government, who've gone to receive Mohammed bin Salman. He was originally slotted to come in yesterday. He's come in a day after that, but he's also staying on for an extra day. That's Mohammed bin Salman now stepping down in India. Shiv.
Absolutely. It's very important. This is a state visit by the leader of Saudi Arabia. There's going to be separate meetings that happen between the Prime Minister and Mohammed bin Salman. We've seen a lot of camaraderie and bonhomie in the body language between these two leaders as well, quite separately from the G20. Transformational relationship under the Modi government between India and Saudi Arabia. It's been taken to the next level as well. Like you said, Rahul, a polarizing figure, so I'm sure we're going to see quite a few things said here in the Indian press, and rightfully so, about the Saudi Arabian leader. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all fits in with India's West Asian policy as well. So many things have happened as far as UAE is concerned, as far as Iran is concerned, Saudi Arabia as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all fits in, with such a busy weekend already with the G20, Rahul.
Saudi Arabia, I think, is again an interesting element of the Modi foreign policy outreach. Because when Mr. Modi came to power, there were questions raised by, again, his critics. How would he deal with the Islamic world? And the truth of the matter, he's dealt with it extremely nimbly and extremely in an effective manner, to the point where your relationships, you mentioned Shiv, UAE, but with Saudi Arabia itself, you've got actually Russia, China, Saudi Arabia and India, ironically as part of one alliance within G20, opposing a proposal by Western countries to triple renewable energy capacity by 2030. And you've got India working closely with the Saudis, whether it is on issues that concern defense cooperation, and indeed, oil exploration. So you've got
this is
India
one of the biggest foreign policy achievements of the Modi government. Again, to counter your point about just being packaging, this is much more than packaging. Saudi Arabia and countries in the UAE were big supporters of Pakistan in international bodies like the OIC. And Prime Minister Modi has been able to wean Saudi Arabia and the UAE away from Pakistan's embrace. That's a mess. I mean, look at his strong right-wing Hindutva credentials. Look at the kind of politics that Saudi Arabia and some of these Gulf countries have had to be able to take them away from Pakistan's embrace.
We have extradition agreements with them now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think, in fact,
that's much more than packaging.
No, 1 minute. You see, we look at strengths. For example, the government's policies in the neighborhood can be questioned. How you've dealt with China, I think Mr. Modi's had setbacks despite his attempts to reach out to China.
No, but those setbacks are because of China, not because of Prime Minister Modi.
At the end of the day, that we can debate. Whether he went and met Nawaz Sharif impromptu, didn't work out. reached out
But
to...
Bangladesh has been given a
reached
seat
out
at
to
the high
China.
table.
Look,
Sheikh Hasina is here.
Bangladesh and India have had a strong relationship pre-2014. India's foreign policy...
No, there were so many problems at the
But
border which
there
couldn't
was a very
get
effective
resolved.
relationship between the two countries pre-2014 as well. I think the point I'm trying to make, Prime Minister Modi has surprised many people by his effective handling,
Gaurav has his hand up. He's
1 minute.
wanting to come in and
of his
respond.
reach out to West Asia. I think one of his achievements, when you will list out a Prime Minister's achievements, one of the big achievements, I think, on the foreign policy front will be how we've effectively reached out to the Islamic world, how we've, in a way, isolated Pakistan, as you rightly said, on Kashmir within the OIC. I think that's a huge achievement. We can also question whether we've got our China policy right or wrong. And I think questioning one while praising another is the way we should be.
Okay, I think if we don't go to Gaurav, he'll just jump out of the screen and come straight into the media plex. So Gaurav, here you go.
Okay, Rahul, Saudi Arabia, one of India's biggest success stories started 2015. Effectively engaged Saudi Arabia. We have civilizational ties with Saudi Arabia. That has been harnessed. It's not just, the fuel that we get from there. It's not just the 175,000 Hajis who go every year. It's also the Indian diaspora that works in Saudi Arabia. That relationship has worked. It's a security alliance. It's a comprehensive security alliance that's worked very effectively. The fact that Ashwini Vaishnav went and received him is because this is a state visit that starts off immediately after this G20 visit, which is a multilateral visit. So all multilateral guests have been received by ministers of state. For a state visit, it's a cabinet minister who's gone and received Saudi Arabia. As far as China is concerned, India's policy is no longer subservient to China and no longer Chinese interests first, no longer permitting Chinese salami slicing. After Doklam and then after Galwan, India effectively said enough is enough. Even if it means putting 50,000 troops at the line of actual control, no longer will Chinese salami slicing be permitted. And that was the rudest shock for Xi Jinping. Despite India reaching out to him, he tried more salami slicing and it hasn't worked out. That is why China's on the defensive today. That's point 3. Point 4, our relationship with Bangladesh has been good, but not when Khalida Zia was the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. When Khalida Zia was Prime Minister of Bangladesh, you had all the Pakistan ISI bases there effectively countering us. We almost had a two-front war that side when Khalida Zia was there. Therefore, Sheikh Hasina and India's engagement with Sheikh Hasina has worked out to India's advantage. And right now, you have a power plant that is being inaugurated. You have a rail line being inaugurated. India's engagement with Bangladesh is now being taken.
Yeah, but these building blocks, you see, Gaurav, you've got to recognize India's engagement with Sheikh Hasina has been actually pre-2014. A number of the initiatives that were taken, it's almost as if you're suggesting Prime Minister Manmohan Singh did nothing when he was in power, which I think is a very unfair way to look at India's foreign policy.
That at all.
So therefore, to suggest Khalida Zia was last Prime Minister of Pakistan of Bangladesh almost 2 decades ago now. Okay. So we've got to look at changes that have taken place. And similarly on China, Gaurav Sawan must recognize, while you say India's taken a tough stand, the fact is India did reach out to
the first
China in the early years,
so
and it didn't work out.
Who comes out of it? The problem is they haven't given us a sequence, so we don't know who's coming first. And
Apparently, in alphabetical order, Gaurav said.
Is that how they come?
That's what Gaurav said. Gaurav, alphabetical order. They've just started arriving. It looks like.
So it was. So guests have all started arriving. We can see behind us at that Bharat Mandapam where guests are arriving, but the distance at which we are for this vantage point, we only get to know which are the leaders that have arrived. If Mohammed bin Salman, since it's a state visit, perhaps is that the reason that he has come in first?
No, so Mohammed bin Salman just landed at the airport, Gaurav. He just landed at the airport. So he's not at the Bharat Mandapam yet. He just landed at the airport. And remember, you've got the heads of state and heads of government, and you've got the heads of all the international bodies as well. So now we're going to try and take you through who's coming as they come in, but we can see one by one the guests have started arriving. All these tour car company guys are doing great business. They've got all their Maybachs fully booked out, so it's great business for them.
So how does it work out? Do all the leaders now, over the next 3 hours, are they closeted in one room together? The bilateral start post 1:30?
Oh yes, it's that same room where we were, that oval-shaped massive desk where all of them sit around one by one.
It's called One Family. The first meeting is called One Family.
And that's the one chaired by the Prime Minister? So the Prime Minister as the leader of the G20, India as the leader of the G20, the Prime Minister chairs a meeting of these 20 countries. Am I correct? That they all are in one room, represented either by their foreign ministers, their prime ministers in some instance?
That's right, and I also want to just tell our viewers, Rajdeep, you're right, it's going to be in one room. That's Masatsugu Asakawa. He's the chief of the Asian Development Bank, you see there, walking in. He's the first to arrive there, past the flags. So I think, Rahul, I think the first people to arrive are the chiefs of the multilateral organizations. You'll have
Ajay Banga coming
Ajay
in
Banga walking in as well, and then I think the government leaders will be
Georgieva, she now famous across the country for her Sambali steps. I mean, she's obviously a fantastic economist and very renowned macroeconomist, but that apart, she also, when she'd come into India, joined the cultural extravaganza. So we'll see, and we know that the American president, they've just put out a statement saying that Joe Biden will be coming at 10:30. So that happens sometime from now. So that's the first guest being received by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A stunning setting. Usually I saw in Indonesia, they just had flags. Here you got that chakra, so it's a very nice backdrop. So as Rajdeep was saying, the packaging is strong.
Perfect.
The packaging should be strong. Why
Wonderful.
not?
No, it should be. Let me say, I don't say it as a criticism. I say that actually, I keep reiterating, India has done what no other country has done when it comes to the packaging of a G20 event. Just trying to understand, multilateral organizations sit in on the meeting today. All the multilateral organizations that are there will be sitting in as invitees.
Correct. I've just got some information from the Prime Minister's office about the Konark wheel from Orissa. This was built in the 13th century during the reign of King Narasimha Dev I. The wheel with 24 spokes, also adapted into India's national flag, embodies India's ancient wisdom, civilization, architectural excellence. The rotating motion of the Konark wheel symbolizes time, the Kal Chakra, as well as progress and continuous change.
ILO के महानिदेशक.
This is the International Labour Organization chief.
Gilbert Fossum Hongbu, Director General, ILO.
The Director General of the International Labour Organization just coming in. That's Kristalina Georgieva, the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. She, the one who won the internet with her moves, sprightly, bright economist, and also, someone who's steered the International Monetary Fund at a time when debt relief has become a major issue. Countries like Ethiopia, Zambia, Ghana working towarst that.
And the IMF has been full of praise for India. If you look at their recent reports, they've been very upbeat on India. Both the IMF and the World Bank, but particularly the IMF, has been extremely bullish on the India story.
That's Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations. He did a press conference in the capital yesterday. He's having to steer the United Nations at a time when questions are being asked about the relevance, the role of the UN in being able to bring countries with differing points of view together. He spoke of the need to reform the United Nations Security Council in the press conference yesterday.
Secretary General of United Nations, माननीय एंटोनियो गुटेरेस, संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ के सेक्रेटरी जनरल.
From Portugal, a country with which India again has had a long history, tumultuous in many ways, but a country with which, as we've known